Assalamu alaikum, everybody. This is Imran Nanlawala from A Continuous Charity. Welcome to our excellent and amazing webinar today, Entrepreneurship in Difficult Times with Chris Abdurrahman of Launch Good. Chris Abdurrahman is a passionate Muslim American entrepreneur committed to building up the global Muslim community to reach its full potential. Chris was born in Malaysia, raised in the United States, became Muslim at 16, studied engineering and educational leadership at the University of Michigan. He has worked as an Intel engineer, an award-winning film producer, founder of PatronCity.com, and a winner of the Magic Johnson Social Entrepreneurship Prize. He currently lives in Dearborn, Michigan with his wife and two children. Chris, how you doing, brother?
Good, alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa
Honored
alaikum
to be
salam.
here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. How's life been quarantining?
Pretty good. It's we live in a suburb, so it's not like a city where we're stuck in an apartment building. So we're able to walk around the neighborhood and go biking and stuff like that still. So alhamdulillah, the challenge is the kids coming in, and so hopefully I didn't get them in bed all the way, but hopefully at least they don't come in the office in a room here and we can have a private interview.
Mine are in the basement, so I'm gonna hope that their noise doesn't travel up a couple floors.
Yeah, well, I like your background. That's nice, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, thank you.
How old are yours?
Mine are 7, almost 6, 4, and 2.
Wow.
Yeah, how about yours?
That'd be a lot. I won't lie. I got a 5 and a 2-year-old.
Mashallah.
So just half as many kids, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. It's a blessing, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So I wanted to ask you, I'm reading your biography, and you've worked as a film producer, you've worked at Intel, and I was reading a little bit about what you were able to accomplish at Intel, and you were able to save them a lot of money. Some people would think, why would you give up the comfort and the security of a stereotypical 9-to-5 where you get benefits and you get decent pay to go down this path of carving out your own niche and creating a platform like LaunchGood?
It's a good question. To be honest, like it never motivated me. I don't know why. I just always thought like money's not going to make me happy. The work I'm doing and the opportunity I have to leave a positive legacy behind will make me happy. And it's weird because like in hindsight, like now I'm 35 and I got kids, and so money matters more. But it's like, yeah, I never even thought about like how much money I could make if I stayed down this path. And I don't really feel bad about having gone down a different road at all. Now, that's not true for everybody, of course, but I think for me, really, one of the key moments was to be in Intel, sitting in my cubicle. We had this project, saved them a bunch of money. You come back the next day, and it's just the same thing. I'm just sitting in my cubicle. And I'm like, okay, what am I doing? I became Muslim 3 months before 9/11. It's like a very dramatic thing, like changing my whole life. Like, so any decision really after that is much less risky than the one I made in 2001. And, one of the main inspirations in that journey was Malcolm X, Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, Allah have mercy on him. And it's like, he sacrificed everything. I mean, what did he leave behind when he died for his family of wealth and riches? And, he never even owned a house. So, I look at that and I just feel like whatever, like, quote unquote, sacrifice I'm making is really nothing at all.
I saw that you studied educational leadership, and I also got my master's in educational leadership. And
that's cool.
Yeah. What's interesting though is I find that studying educational leadership, people would not look at educators as creators or entrepreneurs, but I found that the program actually centers around thinking kind of out of the box and thinking of solutions for creative problems. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Where did you go to school of education?
Northeastern Illinois University. It's a school in Chicago. It was founded in 1867 and has a strong lineage of educational.
Yeah, great. I went to University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and I think that was definitely a push of theirs because they were trying to get they actually gave me a scholarship, which I was really excited about. I think because I was not a traditional degree, I was coming in as an engineer. and they were really trying to recruit different people. But yeah, I think I'm blessed in general. Like all of my education, I have such different educations between engineering and school of education, and then traditional Islamic studies, and just my coming from a family of entrepreneurs, etc. I think it's always helped me be a little bit outside the box.
So when you're in your process, when you're in your trajectory, studying different fields, working at different places, do you find that it's a commonality amongst most entrepreneurs where they're, like you said, not fixated necessarily on the money, but fixated on solution creation and creating like innovative products and innovative ways of doing things?
Yeah, I think you definitely get a mix of entrepreneurs. Some entrepreneurs are awesome at finding money, right? Like Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, and to modern people that just like they see financial opportunities and jump on it. Like we have Dan Gilbert guy here in Detroit, our local billionaire. But I do agree that generally entrepreneurs are people who are not satisfied with the way things are or can't resist the opportunity they see. I mean, I think that was it for me, is like, you just see this opportunity. It just seems so obvious. And it's like, well, someone should do this. Why don't I do that? And although that might be very obvious for me, I think for a lot of people, it's like, someone should do that. I hope someone does it. I think that's how most people think. For me, I'm always like, well, if I can do it, I'm just going to go try it myself. And you realize you may not be qualified at all. But neither were the other people who started stuff long ago,
So then in terms of, if you could give us some tangible points in terms of the mindset that is needed, if we said to our aspiring entrepreneurs out there, what are some consistencies across the board, whether someone is better at fundraising, whether someone is better at like engineering a creation, what are some of the consistencies in terms of what we find in entrepreneurs, in the mindset?
And by the way, I don't know if you heard that we're about to have like major thunderstorms. So I hope we don't get disconnected.
No problem.
Inshallah, we stay connected in this life and the next. So, I think one major consistency between entrepreneurs is really hard because there's so many types of entrepreneurs, but is a certain type of grit. It's really hard. I mean, you have a lot of ups and downs, a lot of soul crushing type of moments where you're just like, I want to quit. I just want to give up and like go back to, I mean, even now it's like, I'm exhausted, man. I'm working, regularly till midnight right now. Just because so much is going on. And sometimes you're like, what would it be like to be bored? Like people are like, oh, I'm so bored. Like I finished watching, Ozarks on Netflix. Now what? And it's like, what? Like, oh man, it's I can't imagine it. So that's, a challenge of entrepreneurship. There's a lot of challenges. You have to have grit. You have to have the ability to really hunker down and just break through the obstacles that you'll face, because you definitely will face obstacles. A second one I'd say is a growth mindset. So I was talking with one of my co-founders today about something. So my co-founder, his name is Omar Hamid. And we were talking about how would certain people perceive like this new thing we're launching. We're talking about the language, and we're like, man, we're the CEO and the chief design officer, but we have to also be like chief communications officer and a PR specialist. And like everything you do, you have to think about it in 101 ways. And it all started usually, when you start something, it's 1 or 2 or 3 people only. So like in the early days of LaunchGood, I had to teach myself how to do newsletter, how to do some stuff on the website, how to do payments and learn all about payments, like, learn about all these banking regulations. Like none of this stuff I knew coming in. And I think that's true for every entrepreneur, because you can't scale from just like your idea or your prototype to a functioning company unless you're willing to learn a lot of this stuff.
So I see that you mentioned some of the values on the LaunchGood webpage.
I took the easy way out, but growth mindset are like for LaunchGood, 2 very core values.
I was going to ask you about those anyways, because one that stood out beyond grit was, I guess the way I refer to it as is extreme ownership. And you said ihsan, excellence. So talk to the listeners about what is so important important about owning something, like to an extreme point of view where you have to take full responsibility and ownership of a project.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So we call it, there's a popular term out there, emotional intelligence. And I think we call it emotional ihsan on our website. And so it's not just, being smart, but doing things in the most beautiful, perfect way, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us. And we know the Prophet ﷺ said, when you do something, do it with perfection, or itqan, with a similar meaning. And these are values, especially for us as LaunchGood, are very important for this reason. And I'm going to take a tangent. I'll come back. Actually, let me explain the reason. Then I'll take tangent and come back. The reason why emotional ihsan for us is so important is we are fighting an inferiority complex amongst the Muslim community, where oftentimes we assume that just because something is Muslim, it's inferior. If it's a Muslim crowdfunding website, it must be inferior. If it's a Muslim scholarship program, it must be inferior. This is a very common mindset. I don't know have you guys come across that before?
Absolutely. But since you brought it up, you have to say, why do we have that mindset?
Yeah. So let me go on a little tangent for a second. I got my story about halal burgers. So I became Muslim, I mentioned 2001, and in a very remote kind of part of the country called Amherst, Massachusetts, Pioneer Valley, Western Massachusetts, 2 hours outside of Boston, some nice colleges, some farms, very few Muslims, very little halal food. And so growing up in that environment, once I became Muslim, it was like, okay, any halal food I can get is probably going to be biryani or, some sort of Arab dish. And then after a while, I think we were having a barbecue one time in the Muslim community, and people were like, you want a halal burger? I was like, oh yeah. Like, man, it's been so long. I'm dying for a halal burger. And you get this thing that's like a kafta burger with these weird spices to my young white American tongue. And it's like between two slices of bread. And you're like, come on, that's not a burger. And you're in Dallas, is that right?
I'm in Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. Okay, good. I think Chicago is not too different than, at least in Michigan, Dearborn. If you're like, let's get a halal burger, man, you're drooling. It's the best. We got even recognized as the best burgers in Michigan, like our halal burgers. Like non-Muslims recognize that. Toronto, is it like that in Chicago?
I'm not a big fan of Chicago halal food.
Okay.
Outside of the city, I think it's developing in some of the suburbs. I'm the wrong person to ask.
Places, especially like Hamda, Dearborn, come over. I'll take you out. Toronto's like, I thought Dearborn was good. Toronto's out of this world. So we're starting to see in some places now, when you say halal burger, it's actually it's a 180. It's a completely different meaning than it used to be. And it's like, how did they get from here to here? And it was that ihsan, like they're making really good burgers. Like a new generation of Muslims came up. They didn't want to run their father's Arabic restaurant, but they wanted to try, a burger place instead, for example. And so if we can really execute with ihsan, I believe we can change the taste of our community, or the taste of our community. There's always going to be haters. There's always going to be people that, assume it's inferior. But, it's for that reason that we have to take it to another level. And especially within LaunchGood, I feel that we've achieved some sort of notoriety, some sort of a broad awareness globally. Like people sometimes treat us like we're the Google of the Muslim community. And I'm like, the security guards probably make more at Google than we do. So that's a far cry. But the fact that they hold us in such high regard, to me, is a very big responsibility. Because it means that we are, regardless of how big LaunchGood grows, if it closes tomorrow, I think we've built something that's a role model for many others following us. And we take that seriously that, okay, what we do now is going to affect dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of future Muslim organizations and startups. So we have to have ihsan inside and out of this organization.
So talk to us about when LaunchGood first started compared to today. What were some of the campaigns you guys were working on initially, and how have you guys transformed, and what are some of the unique projects you're working on now?
Oh, it's a really good question. So I'm going to take it a little bit into the pre-launch good when I was a film producer. So, um, uh, and around that time, that's 2010. Just a little before that, a few years before, Dr. Omar Farouk Abdullah from Chicago, you may know, he released an article called "Islam and the Cultural Imperative," and in this article, he talked about how culture is actually like Islam is somewhat cultureless. Like you can have a Chinese Islam, you can have an American Islam, you can have an Arabian Islam, a Desi Islam. That culture, Islam is like the clear flowing water that goes over a colored bedrock and it reflects the color of that bedrock. And he really was calling for we need to support culture makers in the Muslim community. And I really took that to heart. And I had this amazing friend, Sultan Sharif, as a filmmaker, and he had this movie Bilalstan that got into Sundance in 2010, which is this like incredible opportunity. And he was kind of a mess though financially on the business side of stuff. So I left what I was doing and I moved to Detroit and I helped him launch the film company and worked on this film. But we were like so broke, and we needed money to finish off this film. And we're like, what do we do? And at that time, we turned to Kickstarter. Kickstarter today has raised billions of dollars for creative projects, but at that time it was brand new. It was a year old. We were the first Muslims on Kickstarter. We had a very successful campaign, and I fell in love with crowdfunding. I was just like, I love this. I love seeing the creativity and the innovation, and I'm like, this is what Muslims need. We talk about this golden age of Islam in the past, and Baghdad and Andalus and chemistry and algebra and whatever. Yeah, and there's so many things that we're proud of in our history. But we have 1.8 billion Muslims today. What are we doing today? What value are we adding civilizationally today? And so that was actually the first inspiration for LaunchGood, was much more of an entrepreneurial and creative platform. And so our very first project was called Naduna Hijabi Fitness DVD, which is like a very creative project. And then we had Bassem Rashidi shortly after that had this Nasheed album. Peter Gould made these apps for kids, Muslim kids. And so that was really like how LaunchGood started, not so much on the charity side, but Muslims love charity. So people are like, well, can I raise some funds for this? And we're like, yeah, okay, that's not what we're thinking, but go for it. And then subhanAllah, like after a year, charity just took over the website. And so we still really try hard to support those creative campaigns when they come. But of course, today, LaunchGood, I think, is synonymous with charity and good acts of will and living, Muslims living up to the values of the Prophet ﷺ in the Quran.
I mean, we at ACC, we use LaunchGood quite regularly, at least a few times a year. So we can testify to the fact that it's helped us tremendously in terms of making sure our mission statement is achievable and our students are helped. One thing I wanted to share was this article, and I kind of wanted to discuss it. So entrepreneur.com has an article out today. For savvy entrepreneurs, an economic downturn creates opportunity. But what I want to focus on is, like you were mentioning, when you guys first started, it was creative, but then the social element also kind of, creeped in.
Yeah.
So I think, what do you think, due to COVID-19 currently, what do you think it is going to do in terms of people's mindsets? Do you think people are going to go purely into entrepreneurship for the sake of just creating solutions and maybe making money through that? Or do you think that there's also the social element?
Well, we're seeing a lot of the social element now. I mean, it's pretty cool actually to see all the people trying to create ventilators, cheaper ventilators, do-it-yourself ventilators. Like, there's a lot of goodwill going around now. I'm old enough to really remember the 2008 crisis well. Mm-hmm. I just entered the workforce. I'm 35 now, so that was like 12 years ago. I was like, 23. I just started working. And I was shocked, like people left and right losing their jobs. And I'm like, oh man, are we going to recover from this? Is like going to be worse than the Great Depression. I really couldn't see a way forward. And I was hearing this. People were like, oh, there's a great time for entrepreneurs. And these are all the companies historically that started in the Great Depression or downturn in the 70s, whatever. And I'm like, it's easy for you to say, But if I look at my own journey, that's also when I left teaching and I started working. First was with Fawaki, which
Mhm.
was like that social entrepreneurship. Then Beyond Blue Productions was a film company, and then I went into Launch Good. So actually, I believe that because I kind of lived through it myself. Um, Now, whether it's a social thing, it's hard to tell. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised because this economic downturn is very different than the one 12 years ago. The one 12 years ago was like, okay, all of these rich bankers were doing stupid stuff and they kind of ruined the economy for everyone. A lot of white collar people lost their jobs. But the bars and restaurants were still going, like people are still driving taxis. Maybe they're making less, but I think the elite class was more affected than the working class, with the exception of some of the stuff that happened with housing. Today, it's like the opposite. I mean, I don't know. What do you do professionally? Is this your full-time job?
I do a few things. So I work with a few different clients, and I have my own podcast. I have my own business. So
Oh, Noah. Are
yeah,
you affected by this downturn too much?
not currently.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the amazing thing. Like over 10 million people have filed for unemployment. That's like 3% of Americans. Yeah, all of my friends, from University of Michigan and other places, like they're relatively well-educated lawyers, doctors, engineers, etc. They're kind of fine. Like
Right.
nothing's changed for them. I'm like, wait a second, where are all these 10 million people that lost their jobs? And of course, it's the working class. And so now we're seeing this like, we already had this economic inequality, and I think it's going to be really extreme with this. But so now going back to the social comment, what's great is we're seeing a lot of people stepping up. People are pledging their stimulus to charity or to help others. With the fact that we even have this like huge government intervention, that the government is paying companies to keep people on their payroll. The government is going to pay for all this healthcare related COVID. It's like we're becoming that Bernie Sanders socialist state under Trump. It's crazy. And I think once Americans start experiencing that, they're going to say like, why did we have it any other way? I think COVID-19 has really woken not just Americans up, but the world up, that we're all connected. And who was it that was talking about universal income? I can't remember the idea of universal basic income. They're like, the key is the universal part. I don't mean domestic basic income or North American basic income. No, universal. We need to make sure that the poorest people in the world are taken care of, not just the richest people in the world. So who knows? But this is crazy. Like everything going on now. My parents are in their 70s and they've like never seen anything like this. I brought up like the oil embargo and Jimmy Carter's era and the 1987 crash, and they're like, no, like none of that. It's like this is in a league of its own.
So then for the people who are struggling right now, who are suffering a little bit or have lost their jobs or their hours have been reduced or are in the process of losing their jobs, right now, for example, in this interview and a few other people we've interviewed, they're stressing the importance of adopting that entrepreneurial mindset, right? Use this free time to learn new skills, to strengthen the skills that you have. What are some practical steps people can take in the sense of if they have a creative idea? Say someone wants to build a digital or physical product, someone has just an idea, someone wants to look for funding. What are some things that you suggest they can do?
Well, definitely don't look for funding.
Okay.
This problem, like, it's just kind of waste time. And it's funny because LaunchGood never got funding. We did look for it. We failed at it. A lot of people I know that have gotten funding. I have friends who've raised over $50 million for their companies, and eventually like their companies got trashed. Like, it's crazy to me. I think the focus should be on trying to find some sort of value that you can create and monetize to a degree. Practical steps. I think great entrepreneurs are oftentimes very incompetent at many things. They're like competent enough to understand a certain level, especially sales and marketing, storytelling. But a lot of times they're not the ones who are in the detail. Like Steve Jobs wasn't a great programmer, so like LaunchGood, I found developers overseas to build a website, and now it's like it's even easier. I mean, I'm just amazed by the tools that are available where you can literally create apps that get on the App Store, and you don't even need developers.
Wow.
It's just like phenomenal technology out there. Now, will your app make money? There's a lot to be determined, of course. But people just need to start. Like, really, I didn't know what I was doing exactly. But okay, so now that I think about, one great piece of advice is always seek out mentors. I had a great mentor early on, and still a great mentor and friend, Haris Ahmed. And I was like, I don't know how to make LaunchGood, but I know a guy who's done stuff like this, and he's a good Muslim and a great entrepreneur, and a great Muslim and a great entrepreneur. And so I went to him to help. And you'll usually find great entrepreneurs they themselves get really excited about new ideas, about being able to help somebody, even if they get nothing out of it. It's like in our DNA. And so, go seek out great mentors, people that can really help you out and give you good guidance, because the number of questions and challenges you're going to have, you can't even imagine.
So let's shift gears a little bit. I want to discuss specifically what LaunchGood is doing for COVID-19. So COVID-19 has affected a lot of people, a lot of communities. So what are some of the campaigns you guys have started recently, or partnerships you have formed because of COVID?
So it's a really great question. It's kind of crazy because our company has cycles, just like Macy's peaks in Christmas, we peak in Ramadan. So we're in the ramp up right now to Ramadan. We were hiring a bunch of people, and then this stuff happened with COVID. And frankly, it's like blown up LaunchGood, because now everyone has to go online for fundraising. And there's a lot of needs out there, and a lot of people with ideas of ways they want to help the community, which are amazing. But yeah, it's got us on our toes, because it's like, and I can just talk about what's going on in America, but we've got offices in, Malaysia and UK, Canada, like all over. And like in all of these places, people are really active, which is really inspiring. But, what we like to do at LaunchGood is not be the sage on the stage, but the guide on the side. So we're working with a lot of people and just trying to help them get their ideas started and like push them off, and they take off on their own. So a good example, when this first started, was Celebrate Mercy, a great charity here in America, partnered with Penny Peel USA, another great charity, and Imam Khalid Latif out of New York, to raise money for immediate relief for those like being laid off from their jobs. That raised over $500,000 already, which is like, wow. And then just recently, over this weekend, we've been talking to Dr. Altaf Hussein and some others in the community. There's a lot of concern about our masajid and our imams of the masajid. What's going to happen to them? Masjids don't make a lot of money. Imams make even less. And Ramadan is the time that they get most of their money. And like, so it's just like a disaster waiting to happen. Even we know of some imams that have been laid off already by their masjids. And so Allah reward them, Imam Suhaib Webb, Sheikh Omar Suleiman, Sheikh Yasir Qadi, and Imam Zaid Shakir, all were willing to help spearhead an effort to raise funds to provide relief grants to the masajid. So, of course, any masjid can come to LaunchGood and raise money for themselves, for the imams, and we have a number of those happening. But a lot of our masajid are not that savvy, or they may not have a big following like Yasir Qadi and a big community that can support them. And so they put this campaign together. And then what's beautiful is all these charities got behind it, like Islamic Relief and Penny Peel, and like so many, Mercy Without Limits, like so many helping hands. And they all like offered $10,000 in matching funds. And so we had $60,000 in matching funds. Within a day, we hit 60,000. So now it's already like, I should check it. It's launchgood.com/caring. But yeah, within the first day, it ended up with the matching funds being over $100,000. Now it's at $130,000. And we're not even at the end of the second day. So that's a really cool one that just launched. We've got a number of those things going on, but also just really like small ones. I have this is a personal one, but there's a brother in our community. Our office for LaunchGood is in Detroit, like the heart of Detroit. We're right next to a masjid, which I love. It's a very diverse masjid. People who are doctors and students go there, but also just homeless people, working class people go there. And there's a good brother there, a very good brother, working class, who is out of work now because of coronavirus, but also needs a surgery on his hip, a surgery on his hand, and is getting just got married, is about to have a baby, and needs to move into a new apartment. Like the poor brother. There was a time in my life where, like, right before I had my first child, I just had nothing, and I was like really burdened. But really, the threat wasn't that much. Like, if I really failed, I could have just moved back home with my parents and, like, yeah, I lost some brownie points with my wife, but, like, I would have survived. Someone like him, it's not. He doesn't even have that. And I remember when I was in that time, I felt like my manhood was like, it was hurt, you know, like I can't take care of my family and like all this stuff. So I was like, okay, I probably have a taste of what he's going through. And I offered to help him. We raised like $6,000 on LaunchGood, and it changed his life. And the embarrassing thing is, I know a lot of people that are well off. And so that $6,000 took maybe a few hours of WhatsApping people. That's it, you know, and you change someone's life. So although we love to talk about the Imam Zaid Shakir campaigns, hey, Yas Khadik, Omar Suleiman, that, I mean, it's amazing. The whole idea of LaunchGood is to help regular people help other regular people. Very grassroots. And so we have, I think, over 60 of those type of campaigns going on globally within the Muslim community right now. And those are exciting. So I think if anyone has something like that they want to do, we actually have a landing page, which is launchgood.com/coronavirus. Corona relief. Launchgood.com/corona relief. And then the other thing, I'm going to spill the beans. There's an announcement we're supposed to make tomorrow, but I'll share it with you guys now. Is for weeks, we know that people are going to have to use us or other forms of online fundraising to replace their Ramadan fundraising. Whether this is your Islamic school that does the big iftar fundraiser on the 27th, or your masjid that does the Taraweeh fundraising and like locks the doors and doesn't let you out, they're in trouble. Really, honestly, they're in big trouble. They cannot do that. They can't force you to donate online. We've seen some people already just try to throw up a Zoom link with a link to donate, and it's like, it's terrible. And I hate to say that, because there's good organizations or smart people, but that's not going to work.
Right.
I've already seen a lot of that. And so we've spent the last 2 weeks developing real resources, articles, a series of webinars that we'll be releasing starting on Thursday, that's going to really provide a framework and help for people to fundraise, like the real deal stuff. And we're not sugarcoating it. So that's going to be a website called launchgood.com/outsmartcorona. And the biggest announcement within it is that we're guaranteeing a net 0% LaunchGood fee for all campaigns. You guys, I think, have used LaunchGood, so it's I think you may have experienced this, that normally we have a 5% fee on top of the credit card fees, but donors have the opportunity to cover those fees. Most of the time they do. So a lot of times the fees are much less than 8%, 2, 3, or 4%. But just to take any doubt or worry out of people, because you know how our masajid are, or just our Muslim community in general, they're so focused on fees. They're like, well, how much are the fees? And it's like, okay, we got you. Don't worry. We're going to make sure that your fees don't exceed credit card processing fees. Guaranteed. Now let's talk about your fundraising, because if you have 0% fees but you raise $1,000, that doesn't really help at all.
Right.
And so, the page, it starts off with talking about our 0 fees, but then it really gets granular. I'm talking about like how to do phone trees, how to use influencers and celebrities to support your campaign, how to use unique source tracking, like maybe people see Bitly's and those type of things. All of these things are very powerful tools individually, and if you combine them into your fundraiser, you actually can raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we've seen that, like, really, I don't even want to say sophisticated. They're not sophisticated, but just people that are willing to be smart and put in the hard work, they can raise $100,000 plus and replace their annual iftar dinner.
And you said this is launching on Thursday?
Yeah. Actually, tomorrow. Sorry.
Tomorrow. Okay.
So
So
Wednesday.
Yep.
Yep. And then it's a lot of information. So along with it, we're going to launch a new 2-week daily newsletter. So for the next 2 weeks, every day we're going to send, of all these tips, just one tip a day. So it's like, it can be a lot to consume. So we're going to parse it out all the way until the day before Ramadan. And then hopefully those tools are useful, or those insights are useful for people that have successful fundraising in Ramadan. And they're not actually even specific to Launch Good. You know, I mean, these are like, honestly, it's just common sense stuff. Build a great team, use influencers, get people to fundraise for you, do the phone tree. I mean, get matching funds. Anyone can do this anywhere. If they want to use Launch Good, we're here for them too, inshallah.
So I actually spoke to a few organizations in the last week, and there are still some who don't know about Launch Good. So quickly, how easy is it to set up a campaign? If I log in right now, how long should it take me to set one up?
You know, you could set it up as fast as 2 minutes.
Right.
And in some cases, that's fine. Like I just helped Sheikh Abdullah bin Hamid Ali set up a campaign for his brother, who's a nurse who passed away from COVID in Philadelphia. Allah yarhamu. That was literally like 2 minutes, right? All you need is a picture and a little paragraph, and then just send it out. But for organizations, I would say you want to spend a few days at least. The campaign on LaunchGood, like logging in, putting your stuff in there, that doesn't take long, maybe a couple hours. Organizing your strategy, that's what takes time. And that's the key. That's the key between a successful campaign and a failure. I've seen really beautiful campaigns with great videos and everything, and they just fall flat because they never had an actual plan to outreach. And I've seen some really ugly campaigns raise like $400,000, and I'm like, wow, you know, it's not that what matters. I would prefer both, right? Because that'll maximize your potential, and it communicates important things about your brand. But what matters most is the outreach strategy. It is the work that you put on a daily basis. It's a full-time job. Now, the good news is you don't have to do it long. A lot of people think about crowdfunding. It's like a 30-day thing. You can actually raise a lot of money within 24 hours, within 48 hours, within 72 hours. We had a campaign here in Dearborn. Dearborn is a working class city. Most people work at like Ford or GM or the factories, a lot of immigrants. And so there's a masjid, beautiful masjid they're building here called Al Huda Masjid or Al Huda Mosque. And they're finishing it off, and they just like they've tapped their community dry, just totally dry. And they just needed like a couple $100,000 more to finish it. And mashallah, tabarakallah, they got one philanthropist from the community to commit $100,000 in matching funds. But there was a condition. They had to raise $100,000 from everybody else within 5 days.
Wow.
Within 7 days. They ended up raising $120,000 in 5 days from like 2,000 donors.
Mashallah. So
the average donation is like $50-$60. It's not a lot, but the whole community just got really active. And their page, I mean, it's kind of funny. Like they made their whole crowdfunding video in Arabic. It's like, that is not best practices, right? But they did it. And they worked really hard at it. And it was just WhatsApp. It was 100,000 match plus WhatsApp, like nonstop, really well organized, tenacious WhatsApping everybody. And they did it. And so it's really within the grasp of everybody, but you have to be prepared.
What I'm going to urge the viewers and listeners is that the strategy is very important, as our brother Chris mentioned. But what I want to emphasize is that technically the setup is very simple. So don't let the technical setup scare you. I know a lot of people are still opposed to technology, but I'm just vouching also for LaunchGood in the sense that it's so simple to set up.
It is. And we do have actually coaches and people you can talk to on the team that can help you if you need it. But I find just grab a younger person. Like if someone's watching this and they feel intimidated, grab someone a little bit younger in the community If they're digitally native, we call it. I mean,
Right.
it'll be a cakewalk for them. And now you've expanded your team, right? So like, it's a good thing. You really want to bring a lot of people in to help you. Bring people to help you make graphics, bringing people to help you do a phone tree. Team, that's actually our number one recommendation for any campaign, is build a strong team. It's the most important thing.
Subhanallah. I'm gonna give you the final word, but real quick, I want to discuss something that we've started, acceducate.org/student relief.
Please.
So for our viewers, obviously, ACCA Continuous Charity is about providing interest-free loans so students can pursue their higher educational dreams, and through that, they can become active with the community and give back in many different ways, through mentorship, through donating, through starting chapters. But we realize as an organization that right now it's not about necessarily studying or being at college. We've had a lot of case studies, and a lot of our students have reached out to us mentioning essentially horror stories, right? Being removed from their dorms, being kicked out of their dorms, some who are very dependent on their meal plans that they receive from the universities, who no longer have food to eat. We have cases where our students are back at home. The father has lost their job. Father is driving taxi. He's lost his job. Mom, who was supporting the entire family, her job has gone from full-time to part-time. So we as an organization realize that this is a time that putting food in your stomach and paying your rent is at the forefront. This is more important. So we've started this grant, and we encourage our students and students in general who need help, whose families are struggling, to visit acceducate.org/student relief. It's a very simple application. Please fill it out, and we will do our best to process it and get you some grant money. And from our side, that's it, Chris. And I'll leave you with the final word.
Well, that's amazing. You guys are doing that, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, may Allah reward you. It's I just want to say everyone should support you guys. I'm sure you're going to be doing Ramadan fundraising. I hope people donate. I'm a very proud supporter of ACC. I like to think I'm one of the very early supporters of ACC. I'm not positive about that, but I knew about the Athar when he was there in Michigan, and ACC was one of the very first campaigns we ever had on Launch Good. And so it's just, these are the type of ideas that are so brilliant. People, you won't believe it, but someone asked me, okay, if I had $1 million to give to any charity right now in America, who would I give to? And I said ACC, because I know that $1 million is going to keep helping and keep helping and keep helping and keep helping. And it's good. Like, how much have you guys saved in interest payments now for Muslims?
If you're putting me on the spot, but I think it's about $1 million. It's above 800,000.
Already, you saved over $1 million in interest payment.
Yeah,
and that means that money is going back into our families and our communities and to supporting our businesses and helping improve the quality of life. So, it's a lot of reward, you guys. I really hope people support you. The last thing I'll say is for people, not everyone's going to create a campaign, but you can take advantage of Ramadan. We just launched our Ramadan challenge. Actually, really, really excited about this year. You can join at launchgood.com/Ramadan. Or if you want to give me credit, I have a unique link. We're having like this internal competition of the founders versus the other 27 people on the team, who can get the most signups. So if you want to join my team, it's launchgood.com/teamchris. So now you guys, so yeah, that's a good one, but make it launchgood.com/teamchris. And I'll get credit for your sign up. But it's a really cool program. Our Ramadan challenge is a way that you can donate every day in LaunchGood to an amazing cause. If you're too busy, we'll donate on your behalf. But if you want to choose them, you can do that as well. But beyond that, it's actually, we've built it to be a daily destination for your Ramadan. So we're going to have a dhikr. Like, it's like hard to believe, but it's like an app. We're going to have a dhikr counter on there, a Quran stream. You can listen to Quran, a daily quiz, like what's your favorite iftar food, like samosas versus baklava versus etc. And over 10,000 people do this globally. So it's really cool you might just feel like I'm giving $10 a day, but you know what? So are 10,000 other people in the world. So last year we raised several $1 million from the Ramadan challenge for really cool, campaigns globally. This year, inshallah, it's going to be a lot better, or even better. It goes back to that emotional ihsan that we talked about. we want to make this an amazing experience. I'm very impressed with what our team's pulled off. We've been working with Peter Gould and his Liege Design Studio for over a year now on this. So it's a serious investment. I mean, like, we probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars building this. So I hope people enjoy it. We could definitely make a team ACC for you guys, and give you guys credit for that. But yeah, that's where we're at. And thank you for this opportunity. I love talking to my brothers and sisters.
May the Most High reward you, your family, your team. May He continue to bless your effort. You guys are really inspiring a lot of organizations and making it easy for us to raise funds and bring awareness to what we're doing. So we hope nothing but the best for you guys, and may you guys be able to raise $1 billion through your platform. And we'd love to have you back on, and thank you. And we look forward to working with you, inshallah.
Thank you so much.
Take care, brother.
Yeah, it was really good. Take care, brother.